I honestly thought my friend was just messing with me when he said that like it only gets better past season 3. But what I just watched is the most insane, like just absurd, like show. It's just so good. Like it's ridiculously good. Yeah. So what I'm gonna be reviewing in this, which maybe you could guess by the title, is the first story arc of season 4. It is a continuation off of the season 3 story arc. It's the Shie Hassaikai Arc, which the last 2 episodes in season 3 are part of the beginning of this arc, where we meet the big 3 and all that, and they talk about the work study program. And then this arc within season 4 has 15 episodes. It goes from episode 64, which is the first episode of this season, to halfway in episode 78, which is Smoldering Flame. So it goes halfway until there. Really, it kind of ends with episode 77, Bright Future, but there's maybe like 5 or 10 minutes of episode 78 that is like concluding it and like getting and setting the next storyline up. But yeah, this arc is incredible. I just don't have words really. I didn't think like anything like, and you guys remember me saying about like the last half of season 3, where it's like really the only like strong episode is Deku versus Kachan, which is like up there with the All Might battles. But this is insane. The Infinite 100% episode 76. Oh geez, it's probably the best episode, like fighting wise, and I think it even tops the All Might fight, to be honest. But yeah, so let's just start let's just start from the beginning. Really, I love this first episode that they start us out on. It has a reporter who like suspects that All Might like passed on his powers, and like when he points to the camera saying it's your turn now, that he's actually talking to his successor, and he actually figures out like real quick that Deku is the successor, but he says like, I'm not going to reveal your secret, don't worry, because he has such an admiration for All Might and a respect for obviously Deku now as the successor of All Might's power, that he's like, I'm not going to, like, I just wanted to come and say like, I just wanted to know essentially that there's still hope in the world. So when I report that there's hope in the world still, I'm not lying to people. I actually am telling them the truth. So that was a good way to start it out. I did quite like that. And then right after that episode, we get into it. So you have Overhaul, which I'm not going to go like name by name on all of them, but it just kind of gets right into it. So here's where I believe this is the episode where Twice, which is the guy that is like the black and white mask, and he's the guy that kind of is like paranoid and everything, but he brings a former Yakuza, or I guess they're still the Yakuza, but he brings this guy named his name's Overhaul, and he's a Yakuza captain, and so the story arc here is the same name of the Yakuza, so it's Shie Hassaikai, and essentially they say that organized crime, obviously, and you found out in the first season, but organized crime is really like broken up, so the Yakuzas are all kind of destroyed, and we find out that Overhaul actually like hospitalized his boss to take over and like reform the Yakuza. And what they've been working on, there's a girl named like Aries, I think is her name, where it's a little girl, and she has the power of like essentially reversing time. And so Overhaul is using her along, and then there's this other guy called Chronostasis, which is his like right hand man who was helping him do this. But they're using her to essentially make a. They describe it as a cure to quirks. So it essentially can permanently, and they successfully make it towards the end. But it can permanently like destroy the genes in you that are quirks, so like your quirks just gone. And essentially how it works is that they reverse the genes, basically like they take Ares' blood to make the vaccine, I guess I'm gonna call it, I don't know, like the poison, I don't know, but yeah, so and then they like if it gets injected in you, then it specifically targets, it sounds like the quirk genes, and reverses the body back to a time before there was actually quirks. So essentially, it de-evolutionizes you, I guess. I don't know, but and then there's also a cure to it that they make, that is, it just like basically puts you back to when you had your quirks. And their big plan is, which is revealed towards the end of the arc, but their big plan was to sell all these like quirk destroying like doses, or shots. They put them into bullets basically and like shoot them. So their plan was to sell these to villains, and then once villains start using them enough and everything, then their plan was to sell the antidote to heroes, and just get rich on both sides. That was the plan, to like bring their Yakuza back to like the forefront of society, and make Overhaul kind of the next leader of just villains. And because he describes it how both heroes and villains are missing like a leader right now, a concrete leader after All Might's death and then All for One's death, or not death but capture. And so he's saying there's a vacancy on both sides, and he's going to be the one to fill it. And this is how he's going to do it. Early on, we see, and I'm just telling you like the whole little plot here, but earlier on, you see Deku. He gets involved with Lemillion, Toga, who's one of the big three. He's the top guy that we were talking about. Essentially, Deku gets involved with him, and then he goes and works for All Might's former sidekick. So this guy basically has the power to like see into the future. Yeah, and his superhero name is Sir Night-Eye. And so this guy can basically see into the future. As long as he touches you and stares into your eyes for a moment, he can like see either everything that will happen in the next hour that surrounds you, or he can just see far, far into the future, but it gets more obscure the further he sees. So Deku goes and starts working for him, and there's a little test that Sir Night-Eye does to him, which is like just steal the stamp and like stamp your passport. Not your passport, your contract, because what they need is like obviously approval from the hero to do the work study. And Night-Eye says to him like, I'm only gonna let you do this work study to prove to you that you're the wrong successor. Like it should have been Lemillion, Toga. Toga should have been the successor to All Might's power, not you. And that kind of gets into the point where Deku like, talks to All Might and is basically like, because this is the first point, I guess, that Deku realizes that there's probably other people in the running besides him to inherit the power. And he talks to All Might a few episodes later, and he basically tells him like, why didn't you tell me that Night-Eye, like you guys were on, really bad terms, and like the only reason Night-Eye would probably want me is that because he wanted to prove to me that Toga should have been the successor. So he's basically asking them this, and then All Might's like, just says I don't think it was my place to tell you, and they kind of go in a little back and forth, but All Might eventually the truth comes out, and this is what's really cool about the show, is that they always hint at stuff to us, and like we can probably guess what will happen, because I was saying like All Might's dying, like he's gonna die probably before Deku actually has to face the All for One villain again. Because I do think he's obviously going to escape Tartarus and come back. And I think they were alluding to that in the 78th episode of how that was going to happen. Anyway, so I think he's going to die before Deku actually has to face him. And we now know that Sir Night-Eye saw into All Might's future after he fought All for One the first time, where All Might's master died, and then he got like gravely wounded. And he saw into All Might's future and sees that he's gonna die in about 6 to 7 years, and he tells Deku this, and then Deku's like, well, that's this year or next year. Like, you're gonna die. And Deku's basically like, you can't die, you have to like override the will, and basically like, we have to change fate. And All Might he tells him like, I can't, like, I promised your mom I would protect you and I would live for you, and so I can't die unless it's for you. And so yeah, they have that, but you kind of get up until about episodes 64 to 69, you have that set up there, and Deku on his first day of like going around with Lemillion and like patrolling, he bumps into Ares because as she's trying to escape from Overhaul, and Overhaul's basically like, she's my daughter, like, and brings her back, and you can tell he's about to use his power, because Overhaul's power is he can either deconstruct things or reconstruct things, so he can totally destroy something and then reconstruct. So basically what he can do is bring people back to life if he destroys them and then redoes them real quick, like within a matter of minutes. So he has a very strong power, probably one of the strongest powers we've seen so far. And they get in a scuffle with the League of Villains, and he kills the magnet person. Eventually, like the League of Villains guy is like, okay, I'm gonna team up with you. In the back of his mind, he's gonna kill them, but like he's basically like, okay, I'll team up with you. And yeah, so I finally learned his name is Shigaraki, is the leader of that League of Villains now. So Shigaraki is the hand guy, who can like decay stuff. But yeah, so they kind of team up for a little bit, and he sends Twice and that girl to go and work for the Yakuza for a little bit, and like just collect intel on them and get them to trust them. But yeah, it's just this whole arc was quite interesting, and it's with some of these randos. Like we obviously learn things about them, I guess, but they are kind of just rando like arcs. You have the episode called Go, which is episode 70. That's the one where they actually go and raid the house, and the raid starts at 8:30, and we find out later it was only a 45-minute raid, but it goes on for a long time. But basically the raid is from episode 70 all the way to episode 76, so 7 episodes there. But yeah, you have Go, and then you learn more about Sun Eater, which is Lemillion's like friend, the other part of the big three. I should have said that. Oh, sorry guys, I should have said this, that there's 4 people in this work study like program with different heroes. You have Deku, who's working with Night-Eye. Then you have the Frog and Gravity, who's working with some dragon lady. And then you have Illyrio, who's working. There's a guy called Fat Guy, I think is his name, and he's working alongside him. And at first I was like, this power is really stupid. Like, how is this guy like a powerful hero? But what he does, he has fat adsorption is what it's called. So he can take punches, and then he can store the punches into his, and then convert them into power, and so he can like hit you really hard. Which is a pretty cool ability, because it acts as a shield and a spear, which they talk about in the Red Riot episode here, episode 68. Oh, sorry, episode 72 is Red Riot, not 68. But yeah, anyway. So you have kind of Go where they start, and then Sun Eater's power is so cool. Like, I wanted to see these guys' power, like the other 2 of the big three's power really bad, because I'm like, if Lemillion's that strong, then these other 2 guys have to be just as strong. And Sun Eater is insane, and like you get into his backstory in the 71st episode where he takes on 3 of the like, actually they're kind of big shot villains, like, and he takes them all 3 on so the other guys can run and continue like to raiding the place and trying to grab Ares, because they want to save Ares. One, because they know that They have a suspicion, I should say, that she was probably the one that had some sort of quirk that let them make the cure to quirks, and the other part was that they want to save her because she's just a little girl, and at this time they think that she's Overhaul's daughter, so they're trying to save a kidnapped girl basically. For multiple reasons, but that's one of them. Yeah, so in Sun Eater, the big three, that's really cool. You get to see some of his backstory and like see how him and Lemillion became friends, and it really endears you to them both. It's almost a similar story to Deku and Kachan, except Lemillion is Kachan in the situation, and he's actually nice. Like, he's always smiling and happy, and so he's a very charismatic character, and that's just a great episode to see Sun Eater like persevere. And like the connection that him and Lemillion have is like such strong friends just from like elementary school or middle school it was. But yeah, and then you have Red Riot, where you get into Illyrio's kind of backstory and like why he wants to be a hero, and why his idol is Crimson Riot. And I'm gonna just call Illyrio Red Riot from now on because that's his hero name. But that's a really awesome episode where you have him, and he essentially the villains are trying to take Eraserhead out of the fight, and so one of the villains here called Mimic, who can essentially Mimic's able to kind of alter items, and like, So essentially what he does is make the walls in the hallway that they're running down all wobbly, and he opens up like holes and like drops people through and everything like that. And so he's trying to punch Eraserhead out of the fight and have his two guys go and kill him. But the fat guy and Red Riot get in the way, and they actually get sent down the hole. So now they have to fight this really strong guy who says he's from the MMA. And I don't exactly know what his power is, except that he's just insanely strong. And then you have one guy who can make like force fields around people, and so they sent them, and then it's Red Riot versus or Red Riot and Fat Guy versus those two. And the really strong guy is like, he says like he really wants like a challenge and everything like that. So you had the fat guy essentially just taking a ton of hits from him, being like, I'll be your challenge, and just taking like hit after hit after hit. And Red Riot's like kind of thrown out early because he gets because normally his hardening like will protect him from just everything, like he's indestructible. And he went into his indestructible form, but then he got like chipped up pretty bad, and got like just beat, and by like one punch it gets sent to the back, and his arms are really chipped. And that's where you get more into his backstory of like why he wants to be hero and how he froze up and how he met that like acid pink person. He perseveres, he stands up, he goes and blocks a punch so Fat Guy can like charge his power. And yeah, so and then they end up beating those two villains. Well, they knock them down, but they're heavily hurt. But then the big strong guy is like, okay, let's go patch up, and then we'll fight to the death again, because neither of us died, so that was a draw. And so, yeah, it's just clear that he's kind of messed up in the head, but he just wants a good fight, so they go and do that. Just this whole raid is really good. You have Temp Squad, which is essentially just talking about how why the League of Villains is teaming up with them, and like what their plan is and everything like that. Lemillion is an amazing episode. So these three episodes, Lemillion, Unforeseen Hope, and Infinite 100%, with Infinite 100% probably being the best in there, fight-wise at least. But these three episodes are just incredible, and I think honestly these three episodes put together beat the All Might fight. That was also a 3-episode little fight there. But in Lemillion, he essentially goes and he's trying to save Ares, and he just like because his power is permeation, so he can just like go through walls and everything. So he's going through walls and like using all the skills that he learned, and it gets a little into his backstory, but this episode just had me so many times. I thought he was gonna die going into it. I also thought Eraserhead was gonna die going into this also, which Eraserhead doesn't die, but I really thought he was. But Lemillion goes into it, and he basically wins the fight. Like, he keeps punching them, but his only thing is like, they realize that, so they load one of these like shots in it, and they realize that Overhead gives chroniostasis one of the vaccines, and then chroniostasis goes, and he's trying to figure out how to take out Lemillion's powers, because now these vaccines are like, they permanently take out your powers, they just like destroy the genes. And so they're trying to figure out how to do it, and chroniostasis aims for Ares and shoots, and Lemillion jumps in front of the bullet to block her, and then his power, and he knows what he's doing too, because he knows what it is, and then his powers disappear. Like, he doesn't have his powers anymore. But what I found so incredible is that just because he doesn't have his powers, he keeps fighting, and he actually almost beats Overhaul and chroniostasis without powers. Like, he's just fighting. I thought that was just incredible, and to see him in action. But Overhaul eventually like gets far enough away from him where he can do the deconstruct reconstruct thing, and like essentially sends a spike of rock like through his gut and his arm. And I was shocked when that happened, because I'm like, are they really gonna, like, they're actually gonna kill him? Like, they're actually gonna somehow do this and just kill Lemillion, which I didn't expect it to be that way. I thought it was like they were gonna explode him and then redo. But yeah, no, that was insane to see him get like spiked like that. But then at the end of that episode and then through Unforeseen Hope, this is what happens, because obviously Lemillion's gonna die, and he thinks that's the end. And you know what does bug me though in this is that Ares, I get that she's a little kid, but she's kind of just sitting on the ground, like right behind all these people, causing trouble for them. I'm like, just start running away. Like, what are you doing just sitting there? but she just kind of just stays there. But either way, Deku, Eraserhead, and Sir Night-Eye go smashing through the wall in the end of Lemillion, and then into Unforeseen Hope. We see that because the lock guy, who can like essentially just lock things in place, I guess is his power. He gets stabbed, and he's been kind of hard on all the little guys, like the little heroes and everything like that. Not the little, like the first years. And it's because we found out it's because he just had a kid, and he doesn't want to see these first years get hurt because they're still kids. But he essentially like tells them, you have to keep fighting. There's like dozens of people on top like fighting for us, and like Sun Eater is like probably dead trying to save us, and like, which Sun Eater's not dead, but like I don't know. He's saying all these things, and he's like, you guys have to continue. You guys have to save Ares. And so Deku, Eraserhead, and Sir Night-Eye go, and they run through the wall, and they're there, and they start fighting Overhaul and Chroniostasis. And it's I don't know. It's also I think it's Shin Nameto, I think, is the other one that they also fight in that final one as well, I believe. Eraserhead kind of gets taken out by Chroniostasis, and like he gets slowed, and so Overhaul's able to use his power again because Eraserhead was kind of blocking him from doing that. But yeah, so Eraserhead and Chroniostasis are in their own little battle, and Chroniostasis basically has the upper hand over. Like he has them pinned down basically. You have Sir Night-Eye, who is going and like trying to help Lemillion and Ares escape, but then he sees Deku like fighting Overhaul, and he basically tells Deku to like go and save them, and then Sir Night-Eye is gonna fight him, and he like is seeing into the future and everything like that with like the hour and everything. He's getting close and he's punching him, and he's actually kind of winning the fight, even though he's basically his power is like foresight, so he can like dodge attacks. Because he knows what's going to happen. But what it looked like he did is that he tried to see too far into the future to see Deku and like them escape. And what he ends up seeing is them dying, and he sees himself die as well. And then he gets stabbed by Overhaul with the rock thing that Lemillion also got stabbed by. But this is just like in his gut. He's just destroyed. There's a massive hole in his gut. And it's that... I wasn't expecting that. I'll say that I was not expecting Sir Night-Eye to die, which he does eventually die. He lasts a lot longer than I thought he was. I thought he was dead right there, but then Deku sees that and tells Lemillion to carry Ares, and then Deku's going to try to save Sir Night-Eye, even though he's already been like brutally wounded. And now this is the episode. So you have Deku and them fighting, and then Deku gets like stabbed in the leg by one of the rocks, and he can't escape, and he's only using his power at like 8%, like he normally is able to. And then he gears it up to 20%, it sounds like. But then you have the dragon lady with gravity, the frog, and the bubble, not the bubble. What's her name? She's the other one of the big three. She has like purple hair, but she like they all come crashing in on top of one of the Yakuza members who can like turn really big. And so so they come crashing in, and Overhaul and Deku have their little fight where you kind of see Overhaul. He deconstructs Shin Nameto and like recombines him with Overhaul's body, so he becomes like he's fully healed and like becomes even stronger. And this is just an insane battle. I don't really know how to describe it, but Deku basically uses power at 100% once he grabs hold of Ares, because Lemillion is like in the hallway dying, and Ares like ran back to like be like, you have to heal all of them and then I'll come with you, and that's the only way I'll ever come with you is like if you heal them and save them all. She's saying this to Overhaul because Overhaul does have the power to heal all of them, but then that's where Deku's like, no, even if you don't want me to save you, I'm still gonna save you. Like, I can't have you go back with them. And so basically she like hops on. Like, Deku goes and like saves her once Overhaul grabs her, and then like Deku goes and like does some little rocky jump thing, I don't know, and she jumps down, and he grabs hold of her, and he kicks it into 100, and this is where we see him at 100%, and it's so cool. Like, and the only reason he doesn't like destroy his body is because she's reversing him so fast that he doesn't take damage, like, because she's constantly healing whatever damage he is doing to his body, so they stay in the perfect stable balance. And so Deku's just kind of like going at 100% the whole, and that's why the episode's called Infinite 100%, because he can infinitely go at 100%, and it is insane. This man, he's just so powerful with this, and it's just one of the best fights against him and this like mutant version of Overhaul after he's combined himself with so many of his people, and Deku defeats him. Like obviously he had a lot of help early on, and he has the girl behind him like redoing the powers and everything, but it's incredible. Like he just beats so hard, like he's strategic about it too, which they talk about a bit later. He strategically smacks him down in the hole where damage already is, so he doesn't inflict new damage on other areas and possibly kill like bystanders. And yeah, and he defeats him in just an epic like battle, and yeah. That's all I gotta say. But no, that's not all I gotta say, but that's mostly, like, it's just insane. Like, I don't have words to really describe the battle because it's insane. But they Eraserhead is the only one, because he can obviously erase quirks. He erases or not erases, but he like stalls the Ares' power, because Ares was basically killing Deku because she doesn't know how to turn her power off. So once they finished the fight, she was like killing him, like, because she kept going back in time, which would eventually just disintegrate him. And Ares and Eraserhead like stops her power, and she goes into like a fever and a little coma, and so they take her to the hospital, and they all go to the hospital, they get patched up and everything. But what we see in the episode Bright Future is the death of Sir Night-Eye, and this was a pretty tragic episode, to be honest. Yeah, it's this one was an interesting one, because you have like Deku basically telling Sir Night-Eye, like, you can't die, you have to tell All Might, like, he's not gonna die, and like, you have to see into his future. You'll see, like, the future can be changed, because Sir Night-Eye tells Deku at the beginning of Bright Future, like, you changed the future. That's never happened, like, because Sir Night-Eye is constantly trying to like figure out ways to like cheat the future and like twist the timeline and everything like that to like alter his foresight, but he's never able to. And he's like, you did the impossible, you twisted fate, you changed it, which is not supposed to be possible, but you did it. Because like we said, Night-Eye saw that him and Deku died, but Deku changed fate and saved Ares, and didn't let the bad guy get away, didn't let Overhaul get away and everything. So then you have All Might comes to the hospital, and Deku comes as well to Sir Night-Eye's room, not knowing he's led there, and then he sees All Might there and is like, what's happening? And they go and like say their final words to Sir Night-Eye, and Lemillion comes running in and being like, basically what Deku said to All Might, where it's like, I'm nothing without you, like, I need you here, you taught me everything, like, you have to come, you have to still be here. And Sir Night-Eye just tells him like it's gonna be all right. He looks into his future like one final time, and he's like, you're gonna be the best hero that like ever, like, you're gonna be one of the top heroes ever. And I see it in your future, which also tells Lemillion that he's going to get his powers back eventually, because there is the cure still out there. You have to, because they didn't make the antidote for the, like, I'm just going to call it the cure, which is the thing that takes away your quirk genes. So they did make the antidote to that cure though, and so it's still out there somewhere. So it's possible that Lemillion can get it and use it, or it's possible that Ares can like reverse him to a time where he had his power still. But anyway, so he tells him that like your future's bright, it's gonna be It's gonna be great. You're gonna be fine. And he dies, and he says, always remember to smile, like otherwise there's no bright future, basically. And so then he dies. Yeah, and it's pretty tragic. Yeah, and then towards the end of that episode, you see Overhaul, who's like strapped up on a bed, which I don't know why he can't just disintegrate the straps, but he's strapped up on a bed with the police escorting him to the villain's hospital. Yeah, but you see the League of Villains, like you have the Spinner, who's the lizard, and then you have Dabi, who is he has that like fire, and he's been going around like flaming people that I guess just don't agree with him. You have Mr. Compress. You have those four there, and they basically are planning a heist, and there's that like sand villain guy who like is trying to stop them in the police car in front of the that, but he ends up dying to Dabi, who like just flames him and like burns his legs so severely that he just ends up dying. And then they go, and Mr. Compress essentially compresses, I guess, his arm, or like compresses Overhaul's arm, one of them, so he like takes away his arm, and he's like, because Overhaul he disintegrated Compress's arm. So now Compress only has one arm. I guess he has a replacement because he has two when they show him, but like he doesn't have one of them. And so he takes away one of Overhaul's arms. And then you had Shigaraki, who's basically like, I told you I would get you back for that, and like coming in and killing our guys and like messing with us. And he takes the cure and the antidote, and also goes and basically takes away. He decays one of Overhaul's arms and takes away his essentially his ability, because Overhaul can only use his quirk if he touches someone, and now he doesn't have either of his arms, so he can't use his quirk, and so now he's quirkless. Which Overhaul's whole thing was that he wanted to cure the society. So Shigaraki's basically like, okay, well, if you don't want quirk so much, then I'll just destroy your quirk. Problem solved for you. And yeah, you basically have that at the end of Bright Future. And then I really do think that this arc ends at Bright Future. Like in Smoldering Flames, the first like 5 minutes of it, or 6 minutes or so, they replay kind of that, what happens with like Shigaraki and Overhaul, with them going and like stopping the police escort, and they kill the sand hero and injure a couple of the cops. So it replays that, and then it shows Deku and all of his classmates kind of going out of the next arc of this saga is Remedial Course Arc, where it's basically showing Shoto and Bakugo get their provisional hero license, because they have to take this remedial course to get it. And that really starts halfway through episode 78, which is Smoldering Flame. So I'm not going to talk about that half, but I really think that this arc probably more so ends in episode 77, which is Bright Future. But if you really wanted to like stretch it a bit, you can say like once they get discharged and actually get back to their dorm, that's where it ends. And so all four of the first years, and then the two third years, except and without Lemillion they want to keep for like further tests and like make sure he's okay. But everyone else is discharged. You have Red Riot and Deku go to the police station to give like a statement, and then they go and like sign off on, I guess, papers and everything from their agencies. And yeah, but I guess what happens in this episode is Lemillion talks to Deku, and Deku says like, he says you should have been. He tells Lemillion, and he doesn't know this, but All Might's standing outside the door. But he tells Lemillion like, you should have been the successor. He should have given you this power. And then he asks him like, if I could give you my power, would you want it? And Lemillion, without hesitating, is like, no, I wouldn't want to put you through that trouble, because then you would be the one that's all sad. Because Lemillion this whole time is smiling, like he even acknowledges like, yeah, I lost my quirk and my mentor just died, but I have to keep smiling, like Sir Night-Eye told me it was his final order to keep smiling. And he's like, I have to keep smiling for him, and to make sure that one day I will, like, to keep my hopes up and make sure that one day I will be the best hero, because that's what Sir Night-Eye saw in his last vision. So yeah, he keeps his hopes up, and which is always cool to see that he's just, I really like this character, and his friend Sun Eater is also really awesome too, but I really like Lemillion. He's just a great character. And also their friend, the girl, I don't know her name, sorry, but like the other third year who's part of the big three, all three of them are honestly very awesome characters in there, and like they have cool powers and everything. Yeah, so Deku takes that to heart, and he and because Lemillion says you got to keep smiling too, you got to keep your chin up, and once they go back to the dorms and everything, Deku's just like thinking like, oh, you know, like, because once they get back to the dorms, all their friends and everything at the dorms are like, you guys scared us, how could you leave and everything like that, like what was happening, like we saw the news, are you guys okay, kind of thing. And Tenya tries to like be like, guys, they need rest, like, you know, give them a minute, and Deku's like, no, it's okay, like I'm fine, and he smiles and he's like, everything's gonna be okay. And Tenny's like, okay, that's great, and then just hounds him of like, how could you do that, like why were you, like, basically. And yeah, it just shows that they have a support structure within class 1A that is just really powerful. They're all at the end of the day looking out for each other and making sure they want to make sure that all their friends are safe. And it's not even been a year of knowing all these people, it's been maybe like 6-7 months, but they've gone through unbelievable things together. So yeah, that's kind of where this arc ends. This honestly is just a phenomenal story arc. Yeah, that's all I got to say about this. This is a bit of a longer one. Actually, it's about the same length of the All Might one, where he fights One for All. But yeah, just a great arc. It was 17 episodes in total, 2 from the 3rd season, 15 from this season, the 4th season. But every single one of the episodes was on point, and just those 3 episodes that I said before are just some of they are the greatest episodes in this show so far, I believe. And that fight in Infinite 100% is unbelievable. And if it gets any better than this, which again I've been told it does somehow, if it does get any better than this, then this is just one killer show. I have no idea, because it seems like they storyboarded all of these seasons out way in advance, because there's stuff that's coming up that like was alluded to in season 1, 2, and 3 that's like coming up now. And I just don't know how they managed that, besides having it all storyboarded out, which is a phenomenal feat if they were able to do that, because this is an insane show and has insane potential left.